Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Rob Motive JT. If you haven't subscribed before, maybe you're new to the channel, maybe you've just been lurking, please consider hitting that subscribe button now. All right, so don't make this huge mistake if you're putting larger tires on your Jeep. This really more applies to the Jeep Wrangler, the Jeep JK. What I'm talking about, first of all, my wife and I went a couple days ago and we replaced all of the tires on her Jeep. Didn't really need to do that, except the ride was not so good. But part of our goal in doing that was getting a larger spare tire, one that matches the rest of the tires that we had on the Jeep. Because even before, with these on the Jeep, we had a regular size spare back here. Wouldn't have worked out too well if we ever really needed it. We'd have had a blowout or something. So what I'm talking about, we went out, we did replace the tires, we got the bigger spare for the back. Now, this is the huge mistake you don't want to make. It's not set up to put a bigger tire on the back. There's a little bit of modification that you need to do in order to do that. And what I'm talking about is some sort of an aftermarket, either new bumper with a tire carrier on it or a tire carrier like I've got right here. What this is, it fits over the existing area where the original holder was for the spare tire. You can also, or you have to, move up the rear brake light. We actually have to move that down a little bit. As you can see, it's a little bit high there right now. But there's not room if you try to put this bigger tire on the Jeep without doing those modifications. Another thing you want to consider, if for some reason you were able to finagle one on, and by that I mean you've got it butted up right against the bumper down here where it would sit really tight if it would fit at all, and that would take some jamming in there depending on how big of a tire you go with. But you have to be aware that it's going to put extra weight on your back door. Obviously, it's attached to the back door, so when you open and close it, you're going to be putting more weight on the hinges back here. And eventually, as we all know, if you put enough weight on there and you open and close this rear door often, that's going to sag. Now, let me tell you right off that I don't believe this is the best application if you use the rear door on your Jeep often. You probably ought to go with some sort of reinforced holder in the form of different latches on the door, which I don't think I've ever seen, or even a bumper that has one of those swing out tire carriers on it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, typically they have a post that goes down through a steel bumper here in the back, and then it comes up into an assembly, folds back and latches over here on the door somewhere, and then the spare tire mounts to that. So that in essence, you can swing this spare tire out without actually opening the door. That is probably the best way to go because that's going to take all the weight off of your hinges on your back door and redistribute it through this post here on the steel bumper. Now, that's quite an investment. You're probably looking at somewhere in the $1,200 to maybe even as high as $2,000 range if you're going to do something like that. We didn't want to go that far. We didn't want to spend that kind of money. Heck, we already have a ton of money in these tires and wheels, right? So decided to go with the extension plate, I'll call it, or adapter on the back here so that we could fit the spare tire here. Now, I will say that, again, if we were opening and closing that back door frequently, would be obviously more of a concern because once you pull it away from the latch that it latches on, you're going to have a lot more weight pushing down on just those hinges on the door. So something to be aware of. And one other thing that I'll mention that I don't know if a lot of people consider, if you're not going to buy a spare because maybe you figure, well, I already have a spare, what do I need another spare for? They're different sizes, of course. And I'm not just talking about the width, I'm talking about the height, depending on what you go with. And obviously, if you're going to put a spare, if you ever needed to use it, had a flat or whatever, you're going to be putting a tire on that's not the same height as everything else. So your Jeep is going to sit a little off, if you will. And of course, you wouldn't want to drive long distances or even at high speeds with it set up like that. I would suggest that if you run into that situation, that you make sure that that smaller tire is on the back, that you keep it away from the steering. It'll just handle better, and you can limp, if you will, to some sort of a repair shop. Part of the reason that we did this is I don't ever want that to happen. I don't want to be somewhere and have to limp somewhere else and then sit there and wait to get a new tire, right? We can just pull this thing off and stick it anywhere that we need to. Of course, assuming that we didn't have more than one flat at the same time. But, you know, hey, that's probably pretty unlikely. And then we can just take the tire that blew, has a problem, whatever, at our leisure, and take it off to one of the tire shops like Discount Tire or something and go ahead and have it repaired. Anyway, I just wanted to get on here, kind of talk about that a little, because honestly, when we first got this Jeep and put the bigger tires on, these that are now for sale right back here, we didn't really consider that. We didn't really think about putting a matching size-wise spare tire on the back. And that's the other thing I'll say. You know, you don't have to go with the same setup that you have. As long as you have a wheel that fits on your Jeep and a tire that's the same size as what you've put on, you'll be able to get where you need to go until you can get the other one fixed. You still should go ahead and put the same tire back on, especially if you care about aesthetics and want it to look good. You ever seen that? Somebody driving around with mismatched tires on their truck? Kind of drives me nuts. I don't know. Anyway, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Have you run into this conundrum before yourself? And what did you do? Did you decide to heck with it? I'm just going to leave that original spare on there and roll the dice. Or did you go ahead and replace it with a matching spare like this? I'd be curious to know. Also, real quick, I do have 2 additional channels. The first is Rob Motive, all about my 2020 Toyota Tacoma. And the second is Rob Motive Tundra, all about my hunt for the elusive upcoming 2022 redesigned Tundra. Check them out, and if you're interested, why not subscribe? Don't forget to click that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. And do me a favor, smash that subscribe button on the way out. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.